Until now, investing in vegan startups has been largely the domain of a few vegan venture capital funds and ultra high net worth individuals. With recent advances in the US and world financial laws and technology, all of this is changing and fast. One person who's making a huge difference in making sure that the average person who's a vegan, who's looking for vegan companies to invest in, is Mark Winstein. Mark is the founder of Vegan Launch. It's a platform that helps vegan business founders and vegan investors, even if it's just $100 that they want to invest in the companies that are aligned with their values. You're in for a great treat. Mark and I had a delightful conversation, and I pulled back the covers and asked questions about what investors need to know so they can invest in companies they're aligned with. So stick around.
Welcome to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show, where your host, Kathleen Gage, shines the spotlight on vegan and plant-based businesses and entrepreneurs from all walks of life committed to cruelty-free eating, healthy lifestyles, animal compassion, and the environment. Enjoy the show.
So Mark, I'm really intrigued with the topic that we're going to be discussing today. And you're a vegan. You have a site called Vegan Launch, and it's actually an investment site where you actually cover both sides of the fence for investors and those looking for investors. And within the vegan industry, which, just to me, it's so fascinating because I've done investments in my adult life, and some have been really good, others not so good. And I actually at one point took all of my money out of certain stocks because I didn't agree with their philosophy and their alignment, Facebook being one of them. Did quite well on Facebook, but I just couldn't support what they were doing. So why don't you give a little background as to your involvement with being a vegan, and then how that led into veganlaunch.com.
Great, thank you. Well, I've been interested. I've been a dedicated environmentalist since Earth Day 1970. So I started an environmental business in 1983, and then co-founded a national environmental group in 1990. And from those experiences, I've always envisioned that if we want to make the world a better place, we had to have businesses whose intent was to solve the kind of problems that were being caused by the corporations of my youth and until today. So in 2001, I set about learning finance, and I was especially interested in something called public finance, because that allows the public to be engaged in the conversation. Through the nonprofit, I saw that when the public is involved, you can get a lot done. It's just that the charity platform is just a very weak platform for solving large-scale challenges. So I've been working in this field of public venture capital since 2001. And it was so difficult that I actually gave it a break for 5 years. And then I went, well, the laws changed, first of all, in 2016. And later that year, I went vegan. And that solved a lot of health problems, and it improved my attitude and my body chemistry, which affects the way you think. And suddenly I thought, wow, I actually could fulfill on my vision for mobilizing large amounts of capital for things that we vegans and environmentalists care about. So the environmentalists I just consider like me, just not yet vegan. I was mystified that I had gone my whole life and really missed. But I was like most Americans. I thought, well, you had to eat some animal products. I knew it was bad, but I thought, well, if somebody's going to die, I guess it's got to be them, because I thought you had to eat animal. And then I realized that was killing me. And that opened up this whole world for me now. So I'm 5 years plus into being vegan, and every day it gets better.
Absolutely. Well, I want to focus a little bit on that, and then I want to really get into the business side of what you do. And I want to remind people you're listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show, which is all about vegan businesses, how to market them, how to raise awareness. And you mentioned that you reduced some health problems. What were you dealing with that you feel comfortable sharing, and how did you reverse these things?
Well, I've suffered with stomach problem since I was a kid. Back when I was born, it was considered uncouth to nurse your children. So my first food was cow milk. Fortunately, I didn't get any direct diseases, but I had stomach problems really most of my life and struggled with that. So those are basically gone now. Those healed. And then also I'd say I had a lot of kind of fatigue, and my thought processes weren't as clear as I thought they should be. And I had pretty much been a vegetarian, with maybe weekly or monthly lapses. I was married to a vegetarian, so we didn't cook any meat at home, but we certainly ate plenty of dairy and cheese. So it was really I finally dropped meat altogether in 2014, but that didn't do enough. And finally, when I got rid of the dairy and the eggs, that's when things started to heal. And it took me about 6 months of really studying the science behind eating a plant-based diet to realize that not only I could, but that I should go vegan, that would be the best thing for my health. So that was, again, September 1st, 2016. And by 2017, it just hit me in a flash that I could really fulfill the vision that I've been carrying around my whole life. And the question is whether I should or not, because, I'm not some kid in Silicon Valley anymore. Being an entrepreneur at my age, it has a different set of issues, but
Right.
The health benefits, the energy, and the mental clarity have just allowed me to pursue this business in a way that I don't know if I ever could have when I was younger.
You've really hit on some key points of what I've been thinking about. It's been a little over 3 years for me, and I never enjoyed cooking. All my adult life, I was 64 when I went vegan, and I just did not cook. I mean, I probably could count on one hand how many times in 10 years it wasn't my deal. And now that's one of my most creative things. It's like I'll be on a run and I'll be like, oh, I could try this and this. And it usually comes out pretty darn good. But you talked about the focus, the creativity, the clarity, which really leads into the whole issue of how you started Vegan Launch, because in our conversation before we actually did this interview, we were talking about investments that people are making into businesses. And a lot of times, those of us who really don't know the things that we think an IPO is the way to invest, where it may not be the best thing to do. There are plenty of businesses that are aligned with the vegan movement that need the funding, that would really take good care of our money, but we just don't know what to do. So tell us more about the whole platform of Vegan Launch on both sides of the fence, and then I've got some definite questions for you.
Well, first of all, most people have never, just like most people don't know where their food comes from, most people don't know where their investment products come from. So the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange are called retail investment markets, and the people who invest that way are called retail investors. And it's the same if you're buying something, at a store like Walmart or something. There's the manufacturer and the wholesaler, and then Walmart is the retailer. And the same with financial products or investment products. So the big challenge for ethical and impact investors is that it's 1,000-to-1 ratio, the companies that are trying to do good versus the ones that are trading on the NASDAQ. And you can count those companies on one hand. So, company like Beyond Meat, which a lot of vegans were fond of and, excited by going public, they got their first capital 10 years ago. And Oatly, that went public this year, they're 20 years in the making. And if we want to build a vegan economy, we have to fund the companies now that are going to be the economic leaders 10 years from now. And unfortunately, because of something called the Securities Act in 1933, the general public was pretty much eliminated from the process of financing startups, and that became the realm of the 1% of wealth. And so as a result, the shape of our economy has been decided by a very small handful of people. And, this is not an anti-wealth. I'm not anti-wealth, but I am for the empowerment of of everybody, and vegans as a demographic hold about $3 trillion of investment capital in the public market, but they have almost no exposure in the private market. And so that means we've got $3 trillion just basically sitting on the sideline. At the same time, there's about 2,000 or more vegan companies seeking capital, and just very few are actually succeeding. Only about 1 in 200 actually raise any capital through this whole convoluted process that was the result of the 1933 legislation. Well, fortunately, those laws got updated in 2012, and by 2016, that was when this new regulation called regulation crowdfunding came out, and that was the first real solid effort to have the general public invest in startups. And then just in this past March, that rule was upgraded massively. And it's just, we are in a unique position historically to do good that we have not been in for nearly 90 years. And I'm urging people to join Vegan Launch because we're really a community of people of any economic status working together to build these companies. It's not a deal shopping site. It is a vegan business development and economic development community. And then in that community, we make investment products that we then can sell to the general public. But those, instead of being an IPO, like for Beyond Meat, these are things that fund the very first rounds or more, any round, really. We can raise up to $75 million from the general public now in a given round, given the new laws or the new rules that were became effective in March of this year. So it's very unusual, rare opportunity to do good. And also, last I'll mention is the $3 trillion that vegans hold is just a niche of the overall kind of green and healthy lifestyle investors in the public market. So we estimate the overall market of environmentally minded investors who all should go vegan, that's $30 trillion. So money is not the problem anymore. We are not, as vegans, we're really not the underdogs, actually. We're very well represented, but that money is very poorly organized. So Vegan Launch is a financial organizing community. What we do in Vegan Launch will help guide that entire $30 trillion investment segment of the overall $100 trillion public stock market.
Right, right. Well, you know what I find interesting, and I would love for you to explain kind of what people will find when they go to the site, like if they're an investor or if they're looking for investors. But one of the things that I found appealing is that people can get in for, make an investment for as little as $100, where in,
Right.
Standard investments, we're looking at 5, 10, 20, 30,000 plus. Or definitely plus. But so I'm curious,
Right.
How does somebody determine the type of company? So they go to Vegan Launch and they enroll, and how do they determine, first of all, if they're going to invest, what kind of companies they would pick and choose to invest with, and the people looking for investments? We'll talk about that in a moment.
Well, the Vegan Launch is a process. You can say we're kind of like an assembly line for leadership. And that's both from the entrepreneur founder side, but also people who want to be financial leaders as well, who want to do what I do, which is I'm a financier, I'm a vegan financier. I help organize investors and founders. So Vegan Launch itself is a startup. Even though we're 3 years in, we've just really released a new iteration of our program. And let's see, how do I want to answer that? What I'm saying is that you're not going to, once you log in, you're not going to see like piles of companies to pick and choose from. And when you're doing essentially a many-to-many business, which Vegan Launch is, many founders and opportunities, trillions of dollars of opportunities, and trillions of dollars of capital available, we're getting the machine rolling faster. So we helped fund our first deal in 2019, and that was when we had like just 12 members in a mailing list email, and it was all done with me sending emails every day and kind of hounding people. That's not really going to work. So now what we do is we have, as vegan companies come into the pipeline, and we say, okay, where do they need any kind of fixing up? We've got our own vegan CFO and accounting service now, and we've got our own vegan deal marketing service now. So we've got the people that can help promote these projects. So they go through, and I'm kind of the chief mentor, helping get them to really operate on all the things that really matter so they can treat that money with integrity. So it's not like, we have a partnership with WeFunder. We're platform agnostic. There's a lot of different kind of platforms, each financial transaction platform. So we're not an investment platform per se. We are a community. We're much more like an angel club where people work together. And so over the next few weeks, you'll see more and more of these founders coming into our system and who've recently come in have their own little group inside. We're kind of like our own private version of Facebook. We have our own groups that we can form so people can get together to help work on whatever deals they want. And we also have just a general mailing list so people can be as involved as they want, or they can just wait for mailing lists. But again, when it comes down to $100 a month, you just you decide how engaged you want to be. Not, excuse me, $100 per investment minimum. Really, what we find is the more engaged people are, the more they want to invest. So that's really, we're doing kind of a combination. Mass marketing, as well as those who are the most engaged will get the highest. They're gonna buy in at the lowest valuation, get the most value per dollar. So it's really up to the founders. So it's a community that's growing. You can see, if you join now, you're going to see it grow. Really, it's not like everything's all in the can and you just show up and you pick some vegan deals.
Right.
Because we have a job to do. We've got to figure out how to get the money into the hands of these 2,000 vegan leaders, because without that capital, their leadership will just die off.
Right.
And then we've lost another generation of inspired founders to the vagaries of the Securities Act of 1933. It has nothing to do with the money out there. I've never seen a vegan founder with a bad idea yet, maybe not executed perfectly, but so it's really about people getting involved with a low risk part of their overall portfolio. I'm not saying they should take their whole portfolio off of Wall Street, but these are high risk, high return investments, but they're so inspiring. They're really,
I'm curious, Mark, on that. What are the type of businesses that are looking for funding? Would people that are creating documentaries, like I just saw the documentary called "They're Trying to Kill Us," and the producers, they invested $2 million. They said and so they're charging people for the movie. It's a phenomenal movie, and it's about the African American community and the underserved
I saw
communities.
some trailers on that.
It's amazing. And yet I think of somebody who wants to put a documentary together who needs funding. Would that be the kind of investment, or is it for brick and mortars? Is it for manufacturers?
We're for anything vegan. Anybody that's got so it's a vegan value proposition, and then you match the investment style to the project. So we just don't happen to have any movie projects in our pipeline, but we have one project called Vegan Wines, and this founder went from being absolutely clueless about capital and having spent over $10,000 with other experts and achieved nothing. Now she's raised her first 50,000 and she's going on to raise $250,000. Her company's growing quite fast, and really all she needs is more inventory and a little more marketing, and this thing can just blow up. Now so what's so cool about Vegan Wines? Well, she's out to transform a $416 billion industry with both the components in the winemaking as well as the animal components that are put in, the animal excrement that's often used to fertilize vineyards, and it's very toxic and it's actually bad for the taste of the wine. So this is such a cool thing. And then another project that this founder just joined, they're pretty successful already. It's a vegan supplement company. A lot of vegans are very nutrient conscious. And of course, most of the supplements in the world have gelatin capsules and other animal products in them. So, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry too, that they can lead and transform, getting the animal products out of the whole supplement industry. That's their job. So these are the first rounds of capital in companies that could, this is not investment advice, but you can see that there are, if they can fulfill their potential, there's no reason that an investor couldn't make, massive returns. And this is one of the challenges. If you look at a company like Beyond Meat, whoever invested in the early rounds, they've made hundreds of, 400 or 500 times their investment.
Right.
If you bought it the day it went public, you're pretty well flat now. It's really uncertain what the future is for Oatly, Beyond Meat. Their valuation is not growing at the same curve.
Well, Oatly's going backwards. It's like, I know from personal experience.
Right. Well, you have to have a long-term thesis,
Exactly.
and I haven't really researched those companies, but even let's say that Oatly grows, 20-fold, that's still only 20x. Whereas if you invest in an early stage company, you can get 200, 300, 1,000x. You can also lose all your money. That's That's the challenge. Seeds, like any, if you plant seeds in a field, some are going to be eaten by the mice. They're not all going to grow and prosper and produce a bunch more seeds. So the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, those are considered to be lower risk, but they're lower return. And then we work on high risk, high return investments for the most part, but not exclusively.
Well, and I want to make sure that people know to go to veganlaunch.com. That's veganlaunch.com. And I'm talking with Mark Winstein. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you got that right.
And so I'm curious, let's say somebody has an idea for a business and they go into your platform. Do you help them to learn how to get investors? It's like, explain the platform in more detail from the company that is launching and they really need funding, but they haven't got a clue. Like the woman who started the vegan wines, she really didn't get the right advice and spent a lot of money. And then she came to your site and obviously something worked. So how do you work with the people who are members on that level?
Well, if we think of when people talk about raising capital, what they're really doing is selling an investment product. And all investment products have some common qualities about them. So what we basically do is we walk the founders through the different common qualities of a good seed level or at whatever level they're at. We walk them through the process of framing their investment offer as an appealing and valuable investment product that people, especially vegans, would be interested in. And so I've been mentoring, I mentored many founders this way. And now that we have our online platform, it's also, it's an automation platform and an education platform. So now more and more the founders can walk through a semi-automated process of self-education that allows us to scale. So between the online training that we're adding day by day and the involvement of the community, it becomes less like Mark Winstein trying to do everything for everybody. And the community gets educated, and it's really just a set of common processes that we've laid out that then can be replicated over and over again to reach scale.
So when somebody becomes a member and your monthly membership fee is so nominal that it's well worth the investment for people who are serious about investing or getting investors, they've entered the site. Do they have access to both sides, or do they say, okay, I want to go on the founder side or I want to go on the investor side? How does that work?
Well, first of all, let me just say that the commitment of the whole community is to move $1 trillion into the vegan economy, $1 trillion of capital by 2025. And so, and I just put up on our About page a new video I posted that lays out exactly how and why this can work. So because the membership fee is $30, we just have we have a free membership for people who just want to see they want to test things out. We have a free course called Capitalism for Activists. And there you can learn enough to make $1 billion in that free course if you put your mind to it. And not only make $1 billion, but also solve world problems. It's one thing to make $1 billion. It's another thing to solve world problems and make $1 billion. That is the playbook, and it's free. Now, but you don't get any real access to the community. If you want access to the community and work with other people, that's $30. We call that the activist membership, because we're really an activist platform, but built on finance instead of charity.
Right.
Now, inside that group of activists, some want to be founders and they join the founders group. Some people want to help Vegan Launch grow. They join the organizers group. And then the founders themselves, as they develop their project, they set up a group for their own entity, their own deal, and other members of the community can join their group and, like, what do you need? How can I help? How can I help you market this? It's really kind of like a barn raising system as opposed to, a deal platform. So that's kind of the process. And really the thing is that most people have hundreds of questions. I spent the first 2 years mostly answering questions like these for investors in one-on-one meetings. We're not going to reach scale that way. So I put everything I've ever said in those meetings in the Capitalism for Activists course. Any person who cares about vegan investing should take that course for free. And if you want to be part of the community, then you join the community and you get involved more so.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm curious, where do you see the whole vegan, and I'm going to use the word movement because there's a lot of new businesses coming on the horizon. There's a lot of people that are becoming vegan. I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that. People had more time to spend on their computer, being locked down and just saying, okay, what can I do for my health? And then realizing what's happening with factory farming, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better. And there's no denying it anymore. So there's this kind of movement that really has been growing by the day. Where do you see all this going as far as like businesses, as far as the documentaries, the nonprofits? What's from your finger on the pulse? What do you see happening, Mark?
Well, what I see happening is that Vegan Launch succeeds and we bring this movement into the full potential of a movement that has anywhere from $3 to $30 trillion from which to draw from to shape the economy the way we want. So that is if we succeed, that happens. The other thing though, the negative future, and I've lived through this a lot, which has shaped my strategy quite a lot. A lot of other movements have not really fulfilled on their promise. Like the organic food movement, pretty much every brand that you see up and down the aisles at Whole Foods is owned by giant conglomerates that do not care about, or, they'll sell you a toxic, candy bar. Like for them, it's just whatever sells,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and the same with the environmental movement. A lot of people don't remember there's this thing called the Cleantech Movement of the 2000s. And now it's widely reported as a failure. Why? Because they failed to capitalize. And I was involved nominally. I was trying to raise a public investment fund, a public venture capital fund during that era. And these guys, the leadership, they thought they could somehow trick the Silicon Valley VC firms into investing. Those firms aren't going to do that because that kind of capital, aggregated capital, is very risk averse. And the risk is not spread out wide. When you write a $100 million check, that's a lot of risk on one company. When we go out to the 4 million vegan investors or the 34 million green investors, now we can spread that risk far and wide. That doesn't mean we want to put junk out there, but this is why Tesla is doing so well, because Elon Musk, he had a lot of knowledge and experience. He used the NASDAQ like his own personal crowdfunding platform. He was never going to get any money from the VCs, and he didn't really. He just barely made it through by the skin of his teeth. And now with these new, he spent 80 million on Tesla, invested 80 million. Now we could raise that from the public. So he took extreme risk. The need for extreme risk is gone. That means that the opportunity to mobilize mass amounts of capital is on our doorstep. This is really the difference. Now, the question is, as a movement, are we going to graduate from the kind of grassroots. I mean, this film is great. It's gonna move another many million people, but to really get the message across, we need to grow and scale. I mean, just the meat industry alone spends 120 million a year just on lobbying.
Right.
And
Right.
if you look at, say, PETA, an animal rights organization, their budget last year was $55 million. The budget of the single smallest Fortune 500 company was $5 billion. That's 100 times bigger. And then companies like Goldman Sachs, their budget, their revenue last year was close to 50 billion. So that's 1,000 times bigger than PETA, plus Goldman Sachs manages trillions of dollars of capital. So we're so outgunned as movement people. If we don't graduate into the financial world, veganism can just be another, I mean, these companies and corporations have massive ability to reshape people's value systems.
Right.
And so we need to compete at their level. What Vegan Lunch is really about is competing in the financial world. I believe that if we come together as a community, by the time we've got 10,000 members, we will be competing for the mind space of the investment world with the likes of Goldman Sachs and BlackRock, because their ethic is more money is always better, no matter what it takes to get it. And so we have a chance as a vegan movement to set a new standard for what ethical investing really means and back it up with our own cash. We have no shortage of cash, but do we have the will to work together and learn this field? That's my whole challenge.
That's the big question, and it's more than a $64 million question. It's 7 trillion. Yeah.
The trillion-dollar question.
Yeah, I'm curious, just so that, because I'm trying to wrap my head around all of what you're sharing, because there's so much here and you're immersed in it. You live it day in and day out. But for a lot of us, it's like, my gosh, this is so much bigger than we could have anticipated. Give us some examples of industries within the vegan movement. Like there's the health and fitness industry, there's the manufacturing, there's the cell-raised beef or whatever it is. What are some of the types of companies that people can look forward to seeing as we move forward? Let's say that everything aligns perfectly and the investors are there and these companies grow. What do you see as some of the biggest parts of the industry?
Well, certainly healthcare. Healthcare is an $8 trillion industry. About 7 trillion of that is spent annually by the globe. And the US is the worst. Half of the 8 trillion is spent in the US. I mean, we have the most expensive healthcare on the planet. But anyway, 7 trillion of that overall $8 trillion of expenditures is going to treat illnesses basically caused by eating animals. So that's a massive open field market. We're seeing telehealth, and the templates have all been made by people like, Dr. John McDougall, Dr. Neil Bernard. We have the templates, but these guys are the pioneers, and they've trained thousands of doctors, but these doctors are not necessarily entrepreneurs. So we need financiers and business leaders to build out these ideas at scale. 440 million people in the world have type 2 diabetes. How many of them actually know that it's caused by their diet? Very few, because there's no financial interest to the pharmaceutical industry to tell them that.
Right.
So, but if we can compete, that $7 trillion a year in revenue is ours. That's a huge investment opportunity. Then, the materials science, I mean, there's so many animal components in almost every product that we get, and weeding through those and coming up with either replacements or rationale for ending those kinds of products altogether. That's another huge industry. As we train people how to live, that helps bring down the animal consumption. I think the cell tech is interesting. I think it has better uses than substituting meat, because I think that's part of the issue with Beyond Meat. It's kind of a novelty.
Right.
And if you're a junk food eater, you're looking for the next, triple cheese crust pizza, and the novelty is worn off already. I'm a little concerned that kind of thing doesn't mature, because it's not health food.
Right.
It's just, and in a great book called Clean Meat by Paul Shapiro, he explains that vegans and vegetarians have no interest in eating that stuff. So what's their market? It's a kind of self-cannibalizing market. So I'm not so sure that Cell-Tech offers, but there are other things like Cell-Tech wool, Cell-Tech cotton. And
that was going to be my question about like clothing, because actually I just did a summit with 10 other vegan experts in the marketing space. And one of our experts is Ginger Burr, and she is an image consultant who teaches people how to select clothing and makeup and really present a professional image, all vegan based. And a lot of people don't realize how big that industry is growing. But you mentioned Paul Shapiro. I actually interviewed him on this podcast show, and I'll put the link down below. So
yeah, he's a cool guy.
He's a great guy. And his wife is, a plant-based on a budget. She's crushing it. And,
right.
Okay. So there's clothing, furniture, I would imagine, that instead of a leather couch, you get the.
Well, there's certainly, there's materials that turn into things like furniture. One of our deals is in the cosmetics and beauty care. That's another $600 billion industry.
Right.
Collagen. There's, this collagen boom. Collagen is a waste product scraped off the floor of slaughterhouses. People have no idea the garbage they're putting in their body when they consume that. And one of the companies that we are helping finance, they have a vegan collagen solution that actually
Wow.
I've used it. I healed various things on my skin with it. And so there's so many opportunities. We just have to, we've done a white paper. It's not really published yet, but we identified about $12 trillion a year of revenue generated in industries that rely on animal exploitation. So, that's one of my goals, is to get that paper out in the world as soon as possible. It's large. It's about 120 pages long. It's just not edited yet. So that's like an investment guide for the vegan economy. There's so many opportunities when you look around. And then also there's, forest protection, restoration, the oceans, the intersection of veganism and climate change is massive when you talk about soil fertility and all the way that animal agriculture is, wasting our precious soil, and the oceans are on the verge of collapse. We need large scale finance so we can buy the fleets of fishing trawlers and use them to clean the plastics out of the ocean.
Wow.
Wow. And that's why we need to learn how to mobilize. That's going to take a lot of cash, because the sale of the investment products is mass education now. When you use public finance, that's one of the beauties. And then those companies, their marketing is more public education. So we need the whole vegan economy runs inside of this framework, which
Right.
is educational. And that's really our job, is communication, and then building the enterprises that deliver on that future. Just like McDonald's had a future vision. They were selling to housewives in the 60s, and they also delivered. So if we just stand and preach, we're going to get some movement. But if we use the power of marketing of investment products and marketing of the products and services of these companies, now we're in the mass education game, and we're delivering the economic value that people would rather pay for. And so, we're seeing that transformation in the auto industry.
Right.
Elon Musk has used all these principles on his own. And, it's very gratifying to see at least one person, because I've been saying this from longer than I've ever heard of Elon Musk, but he had the wisdom to make a lot of money first. And I just wanted to go straight to the investment field. I wanted to short circuit his path,
Well, I have to say this has been really an eye opener, and I look forward to digging deeper. And it's exciting to think about what's coming, because there's so many different factions and silos, if you will, that we need to bring together. And a big one that there's such a need is with underserved communities to provide solutions for food choices.
Exactly. Their food supply is terrible. Their education. Those two things are they may or may not know how to eat. And even if they do, they can't get the food.
They can't get it. So, yeah.
Classic problem worth solving. And, here in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm located now, there are nonprofits that have modeled we can look, this is the same in the environmental movement. There's so many models out there that are successful. If as an investor or a person that wants to make a difference, it's not that hard to design a solution and fund it anymore. That's the best thing.
Right.
So at any level of it, like, we've got more projects that are worth doing. We've got $1 billion portfolio of forest restoration and protection projects that pencil out financially, but we need to get the ball rolling so we can help fund them, because they're all struggling for capital and there's no need. They just haven't connected the dots. We've got to connect the dots between those projects and again, the trillions of dollars of represented capital that would love to be invested in these kind of things.
Well, I think it's awesome, and hopefully this show has helped you to get your message out more, because I know we'll be promoting it, and definitely interested in what you're doing. And I just thank you so much, Mark, for coming on the show and sharing about Vegan Launch. And again, I encourage people, go to veganlaunch.com, download the free, and what is the free resource called again? The training?
It's called Capitalism for Activists. It's a free online course. If you put a week into it, you'll be a finance expert. And whether you have $100 or 100 million or $1 billion to invest, you will see in that course ways to leverage your investment, ways to invest that you've never thought of before, that can massively scale the impact of your investment.
Wonderful.
Beyond just picking a stock and putting it in there. And we're really at a great moment where people learn what's in that course, come together in the community. A handful of people in the community can change, can serve the greater impact investment community and really change the world that way. We don't need all million people on board. Maybe, my goal is first a few hundred paid members. We can change a lot just with that many people in the community.
Wonderful.
And we've got a nice mailing list. My job is to bring them into this new. It's a new platform. It's really pretty much live. I've really turned the corner from the development side to the marketing, and this is after 3 years of experience trying all kinds of different paths, seeing what worked, didn't work for helping founders, and now it's a pretty streamlined process. But we're really at the kind of inception of building this community. So if you're committed, you want to help be part of the group that moves $1 trillion, I invite you to sign up.
Awesome.
Become a paid member.
Well, we'll make sure to put the link in the show notes, and it'll also be on the video. So whether you're watching this on YouTube, whether you're listening to it on one of the more popular audio platforms, whether you're reading about it in my blog, Vegan Visibility, I encourage you, check it out and really look at where you're putting your investments. Look at, where you're spending your money and where you're inviting people to spend their money. So Mark, thank you so much. And in closing, what are your final thoughts for people?
Well, I think, we're at a sea change. I think that the whole, this whole COVID was a real turning point, and people are quitting their jobs in droves. People are looking for meaning. A lot of people realized once they started working from home that sitting in front of a spreadsheet all day or whatever they were doing, I've never had a shortage of meaning. A lot of people have a lot of money, but no meaning. My life has been rich in meaning. If you want to have meaning in your life, and you care about animals, human health, or the environment, come over to Vegan Launch, check it out. And once you're in the community, you've got direct pipeline to me just to ask any question you want. And it's a real new way to get involved that is peace-based and with the potential of explosive growth, both for your portfolio, but as for you as a person as well. I think it's a beautiful opportunity that we have. And it's really, that's what drives me every day, is to make sure that the next generation benefits from this, that the vegan movement really does flower and become established as, the way to go for humanity.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. And for those of you that are watching or listening, thank you. And go out and do what's right. Be compassionate to the animals, eat healthy, and think of the environment. This is Kathleen Gage with Vegan Visibility Podcast Show, wishing you a healthy and great day.
You've been listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when the next episode is live. And we always appreciate reviews. Join us next time for more inspiration, education, and motivation to build your business one cruelty-free and healthy person at a time.